Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to season 2, episode 2. We're a month before episodes, and I blame the black guy. So here we go. Hey, there you are. Good morning.
Morning. This is the evening. It's
I see you're hitting the ripple already.
I am hitting ripple. Oh, it's nice that you say ripple. Maybe we'll discuss ripple a little bit later. It's nice one. How you doing?
I'm not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. I am in a much better place mentally because I'm on vacation next week for 12 days and I can't wait.
We had a thing at work. I got COVID in December. We had a thing at work where we generally can't carry a vacation over, but they allowed us to do so because of COVID, because people were working remotely and people couldn't go anywhere. So nobody really could take vacation. So they let us carry it over. And I, for the first time, have 3 weeks this year. So I got 4 weeks to spend, and I think I've spent about 3 days. And, it's basically the first half gone. So I've got a week in August. I've got a week in October, November, which is moving around depending upon the calendar. And I don't know when I'm going to fit the rest of this in. I guess I'll take a week at the end of the year for Christmas, but I do wish I could take a break. I'm looking forward to my break in August.
So check it out. It's funny you say that. Like the last couple of years, I've carried over a significant amount of PTO, especially, and that's my kid in the background having no respect for me recording because to play games with his cousin. But anyway, last couple of years I've carried over quite a bit. And so with COVID last year, there was a lot of PTO I didn't take. We had all these trips planned. Like we were supposed to go to Paris. I was going for work, but the family was going to come with me. And then I was spend another week there. We were supposed to go to Lake Tahoe. Both got canceled. So even with all the PTO I have scheduled this year, and that's with this coming up, my Thanksgiving break, I have scheduled off my son's fall break. I still got 240 hours. And so that's quite a bit of time. I still need to schedule my Christmas break. I'm probably going to do it, and that's still not going to help me. And so this is where I'm going to put you on the spot right here, because you said that you need to take some time. I have offered you several times, like, bro, let's just take a weekend. We fly out to Frisco. I got season tickets. You don't even have to pay for a damn football ticket. And they're going high right now because the Niners are good right now, or respectable.
What have I said to you several days in a row with you on social media? And we have multiple venues. I talked to you on Facebook. I talked to you on Twitter. I text message. I said, we need to find a weekend because I got to get the fuck out. And you're like, oh, well, let's schedule something. You don't come up with anything specific. I've been looking.
Now, that's not true. That's not true. And we could have BAC, Big Ass Craig, on the show, and he'll tell you how I would schedule it. If you want me to tell you what to do, I'll tell you when you're going then. How about that?
Well, I got to check my schedule. I got to check.
See, look at that.
I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to that. And I also like the idea of doing Vegas. I don't look for an event. I did look at the calendar to see if San Francisco or Miami would be in Oakland, in Vegas to play the Raiders, just because this is an idea. And I don't see that. I believe that Vegas will be in San Francisco for the preseason, but I don't think that either of my team or your team is going to the desert.
Actually, not true. And I looked at this because Mark Kuznoff is a Miami fan. I know a lot of Miami fans, and I'm trying to figure out how I feel about that. He's hardcore Miami like you. And so the Raiders and Dolphins are actually supposed to play each other September 26th. But
is it not in Miami?
It's in Oakland. But I can't. I'm doing like you. Las Vegas. Wait, y'all need to move back. It's in Las Vegas, but I can't go because the 49ers home opener is on Sunday Night Football that night. I will be there to watch them beat the Packers' ass. That's right, Jeff. And you was here, I'd say it to your face or on camera.
Yeah, I don't know where he's at, but he's bailing on us again. You promote him to official producer, and then he bails. So
I know. But I will pick a weekend where you are going to go. No excuses.
Well, look at the weekends. I mean, there's a finite of them. There's only 7 or 8, and then you eliminate weekends you can't go, and you pick a weekend you can go.
And we can kick it.
Yeah, absolutely. I can afford I mean, I can get there for free. The tickets are free. I know a guy, so I got to come up with my half of a hotel and, you know, some meals. I can swing that, and Jen's done some trips, so you know, we could look at that. We'll look at that offline, and we can record an episode while we're there. That works.
Damn, there you go.
It's all good. But you number one, let's do bookkeeping. We're going to try to do better. We really are, but it's just in a post-Trump world, and I really believe this. In a post-Trump, post-COVID world, life is busy, life is better, and we're kind of in a relaxed mode. So we non-critical responsibilities have a tendency to kind of slip a little bit. So no, that's not an excuse. It's a bit of a lame explanation, but this is episode 2. We're doing this for ourselves. We don't think we have any listeners. We're going to try to do better. I'm looking for every other week, hopefully. So
there are still things to talk about. It doesn't have to be chaos and catastrophe, as you'll find out with this particular show. Right.
But to go back to your original point of you missed your vacations, I've told you before, and we haven't booked anything yet, but my family, you have one child, I have one child. It's very similar. We could engage your son to my daughter and formalize the bonding like they did in the old times, in the old countries. They would be shocked. My daughter would be especially upset, not because she's racist, but because boys are stupid. But but we're going to go to the second weekend. Well, I'm not going to say which dates so we don't get robbed, but we're going to go in the spring, early summer to Greece and to London. I have family in Greece. Excuse me. I grew up in Greece. I have family in England that I spent summers with. We're going to go to London. We're going to fly out of Chicago. We're going to spend the better part of a week. Then we're going to go to Greece and stay at a 5-star on the beach where I grew up. And then we're going to come back for a few more days in London, spend with my family. They'll come down from the north before we come home. And you are more than welcome to go, as are the extended family. I've invited everybody. I know it is expensive, and I know it's not for everybody, but I do invite anybody who is interested to tag along, you know, and it would be a good time. So, you know,
I know my wife is still disappointed about the Paris trip from last year because we had it set. We were going to take one of the trains up to London. We spent some time, and then COVID came in with the big middle finger.
Yeah, we talked about maybe doing they have like a day excursion to Paris, just so we could say we saw it. And it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but it was interesting. It's like, well, you got to get up at 4 a.m. to get the train, and then you get back at midnight, and you're only there for like 8 hours. And can you really do anything? So maybe we go overnight. And then it turned into like, well, we'll do a 2-day side trip. And I mean, at that point, this itinerary has blown up a million times. My cousin literally booked her hotel to overlap with our trip today. She committed. My one cousin that I grew up with, the rest of my family's up in the north. They want me to go up there. I don't have the time, so you know, we may not see much of them this trip around. We'll see, but you know, my one cousin I really want to see is definitely coming down. We will spend 36 hours. She come down to London for the weekend. So that's real. She made a real reservation. I can't make mine for 2 more weeks because the flights aren't there, and we're going to book together. But it's real, and it's happening, and I'm super excited. It's about 11 months away, but we've been saving for 2 years, and you know, we're going whole hog. It's great. It's going to be great.
Well, good.
So, you know, so you got 2 weeks to save your money, and then you know, make a corresponding reservation. I'll send you all the details.
I don't need to save.
Oh, that's true.
Just kidding.
That's true. Your wife is an attorney. All right. And if you hear any weird noises, I've got noise canceling on, but on the other side of the wall, my wife is using our new treadmill. We're both trying to lose weight. We're both having some minimal success so far. She's overworking hard. She's doing it every night. And she's, you know, doing the running thing. I'm not taking it nearly that seriously, but she is. And if you hear noises, I told her bitch ass to plug her fucking headphones in. Whoa. And if she makes noise, bring me a sandwich. Whoa. But she didn't do it. So if you hear,
not in the room right now,
my door is shut. But if you hear noise, God damn it, I tried. I did my best to stop it. So how are you? You've been good.
Funny that you talk about losing weight. And so this particular month, we are being vegan this month. I did it a couple of years ago. It actually wasn't too bad. It hasn't been. It wasn't bad. I was angry all the time. This time around, I'm not as angry as I was. I'm actually not. Like, I actually feel pretty good. I've lost some weight. You know, obviously there's more to lose. It's been pretty good. Like I said, been in a much better mood. Feel a lot better. So we've been doing it. Got we're done with the July 1st, but I've been thinking about taking it further, not full time, but probably just reduce my meat intake and stuff just to do it. Like I said, I feel relatively good. I still want to lose some more weight though, but I feel okay. Not as bad.
Yep. Can you hear the dog?
I hear the dog.
Yeah, we got a new dog.
Right.
Over the spring, the old dog died, and we got a new one. And he's passive and gentle, but when he wants to go outside, he barks his ass, and I have no control over that. When I tell his bitch ass to go make me a sandwich, he listens not whatsoever. So we apologize for the children and the dogs and the wives making all the noise.
That's right.
That's straight from the brother. Brother at brotherandtheman.com.
Brother at brotherandtheman.com. And so we got a visitor saying hello, and now he's gone. And now he looks like he's going to try to stay in here. Anyway, so let's get into the show.
Let's get into the show. Okay, so which one are we going to talk about earlier? Okay, so let's talk about the upcoming trip that you have, the most immediate trip. And we'll spare the details, but I'm in St. Louis where you grew up, and then you moved to Chicago, to Denver. You're coming back to St. Louis. We may try to record, maybe not. I don't know. It may not be practical, especially with the wives having that don't know each other very well to be wherever while we're down here for 2 hours, but it's an idea. So, but you mentioned on Facebook that you were going to come and that we should kiss your ring, correct?
That's right. Pay homage.
Right. It's a good idea. It's a great idea. And then you posted this outlandish shit on Facebook. And then I called you racist, which is accurate. And then you took it down, which made me look stupid. So you got some sort of woman who's fine kissing the ring of Fu Manchu, which I'm sure is played by a white man, while Punjab and Iman, the black guards, are in the background with their turbans on, I don't know, guarding or whatever the fuck it is those guys do. Now, do you want to explain your ass to social media? Because you're about to get canceled.
I couldn't see the picture. I couldn't see the picture.
No,
I couldn't. Like, I honestly could not see it. Like, I couldn't see it. Like, my vision was that distorted. Say hello, wife. No one can see you from there.
I thought you said that she was out tonight.
Oh, she just got back.
She just got back.
Yeah.
That's why you wanted to go early.
Yeah.
Hi, Beth.
Well, she can't hear you because I got the earphones on.
Then repeat.
Andy says, hi, Beth. She said hi.
She said hi. You can come in here, Mom.
All right. So anyway. So I could.
My wife says the same thing. Not only no, but hell no.
Right. But no, I honestly could not see the picture. Like I did.
You couldn't see that?
No, I was on my phone.
Oh, I see. You couldn't see Fu Manchu.
No, I couldn't.
It's interesting because on my phone I could see Fu Manchu.
So when you said,
do you have an iPhone Mini?
No, I got the XS Max.
You got the Micro?
Yeah, I guess so. And so
you get your glasses. See these?
So when you said it and I saw it, I was like, okay, this is problematic. And so
it's problematic.
Yeah, I love that word.
Let's talk about something else that's problematic that came up this week. Okay, so I was on, and we'll go ahead and we'll play the ticker. This episode is season 2, episode 2, and it's titled Trans Hintz. And I don't know why that is, but we're going to talk about Ooga Booga, which is, as you know, Pierre is a world famous scriptwriter, and he's created a movie which he put into the vault. And I discovered on IMDb this week called Ooga Booga. Now, you can go out to IMDb and Google or search for Ooga. It's spelled on the screen for you here. Ooga Booga. You want to look that up. And I'm not going to play the clip because we will get canceled.
Don't be assigning that nonsense to my name.
Well, clearly you're thinking it's right up your type of humor. So the trailer shows. I'm going to paraphrase because I thought this was the funniest way to talk about it. The trailer shows shows a white guy robbing a convenience store, and it's the worst acting. Like it's got to be a comedy, and he pulls the trigger on the guy behind the counter, and then there's a black guy who's there and sees it, and the cops come and think he does it and shoot him. Also, blatantly, stupidly. Well, we got to shoot now. Bang, bang, bang. And he comes back. He's got a girlfriend or wife who is African American, and he comes back as some sort of pygmy doll or something. And the title of the movie is Ooga Booga, and I guess his spirit has to regain vengeance on the criminal and the cop, because the cop is, so I send this to you and tell me what you said, because it was the funniest thing I've heard in a month.
I was like, I said, wow, that's problematic.
It's very problematic. So everybody go out and Google Ooga Booga, find the trailer.
Yes.
And I won't play it, but it's a thing. And Pierre apparently likes the movie. We may have to have him do it. Maybe we'll watch it. Maybe we'll play it in here in the window.
We might.
You have to be over here do spoken word.
We might have to do it just to do it, right? Like, we might have
There's
to.
probably some challenges with all of that concept, but okay.
It probably is.
There might be a copyright lawsuit. Google will take us down for you infringing,
right?
Because God knows everybody's trying to get behind Ooga Booga movement.
Maybe what we should do is, like, instead of showing the actual thing, we hire some people to reenact it word for word. So let's get Jeff, let's get Derek, and have them do.
Yeah, let's get Derek to be he can play the part of Ooga Booga. It doesn't even come up when you Google search for images. Ooga Booga, all kind of other problematic shit. Oh, there it is. Ooga Booga. Yeah, I'm going to download the image and see if I can throw this up here. So, God damn, it's so bad.
And this is like, what was this, 2013?
Yeah, it was in the last decade.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, good grief.
Yeah, it's so bad. Ooga Booga, sometimes bad is just bad. March 23rd, 2015. All right.
The thing is, though, like, I was kind of looking at this is terrible. I was looking at the cast of it, and so I don't really know.
Stacey Keach in it.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I don't know a lot of the people, but Stacey Keach is in it, and that must have been just one of the absolute last thing. Yes, that is an actual picture from the movie, and I'm like, somebody actually put this nonsense out. Like, somebody put that out. Wait, Stacey Keach is still alive?
Kind of looks like Derek.
Dude, Stacey Keach is still alive. I could have sworn he passed away. Guess not.
No.
And apparently he still has 4 more movies that he has in pre-production right now. So apparently they canceled himself out doing it.
Apparently he's working cheap.
You think?
He barely missed the Oscar for Ooga Booga, and therefore, his prices have plummeted. He's just not bringing home the hardware anymore.
Good grief.
It's
right. Like somebody put that out in 2013.
I don't know. It's probably put out. Look, we talk about it lightly, but there's a double standard. So if a black guy puts that out and says, look, it's comedy or satire, then it gets a pass.
No.
It's problematic.
No. It's probably even worse if that happens.
Who wrote it? Who's the executive producer? Who's the director? Do you know?
So the director is some guy named Charles Band, right? And I'm looking at this picture of Charles Band, and it's a white guy.
So that's problematic.
And then the writer is Kent Roudabush, which I'm going to guess that's probably a white guy too.
Well, with that name, it's probably safe. Oh, did you see the poster?
Exactly. Like somebody put this out. Somebody put this out. And I'm assuming they're never going to work again. Because once they Google search that, it's over with.
It's on Tubi. You can watch it for free.
And I'm mad at Sierra Carter for starring in this nonsense.
Well, it's not her fault.
And Wade F. Wilson, not to be confused with Wade Wilson, the Deadpool.
Yeah, I wish. I'm interested to see what Marvel does with the mutants and Deadpool, but they need to get off their ass and do it, whatever it is. And we won't go on that tangent, but.
Well, not yet. We saved that for another show to talk about what Marvel's going to do.
All right, so we talked about Ooga Booga, and hopefully you'll do well in the new woke Oscar period. I'm sure Spike Lee will back you up and not complain at all, like he complains about every fucking thing. And Samuel L. Jackson will also complain and then proceed to go out and star in every movie he's complaining about because he gets paid first.
Exactly. Like Django.
Well, I don't have a problem with Django. I know that the goddamn this camera will not stand up. I know the role he played was problematic, but it has artistic value, or do we not agree on that?
I
I mean,
don't
those
know. I don't know if that movie had any artistic value whatsoever. And then
well,
maybe I'm just biased because I don't care too much for Quentin Tarantino. Like, it's redundant the way he makes movies and everything to the point that it's like I can't deal with this guy.
I was watching, and I like Tarantino, and he's got a style, and he makes movies better than I could ever make them. So, props where they're deserved. But I was watching a movie that I think is highly underrated. Most people don't know it, and I think it's a good movie.
What's that?
It's on Netflix right now. I think it's leaving at the end of the month. It's called The Terminal. And it's Tom Hanks and Catherine Zeta-Jones, and
Yeah.
it's by Steven Spielberg.
Yep.
And it's a fun way to kill 2 hours. It's a great story. It's somewhat based on a true story. It's good acting. It's not going to win any Oscars. It doesn't deserve, but it's a really good movie. And I look at that, and I look at Steven Spielberg, and I look at his list of movies, and you look at the worst movies he's ever made: The Terminal, 1941. These are not terrible movies. They're just movies that didn't perform as
Right.
well.
Mhm.
And other than 1941 being highly dated and a little bit racist because of the time, they're good movies. So Steven Spielberg becomes an excellent director at the end of his career, other than a couple of Indiana Jones movies, and Tarantino doesn't rise to that level in my mind.
No, he does not. Because look, man, and this is just my opinion. Like there are a lot of people that like him. Like the dialogue pisses me off because look, I get you want to be original and quirky and stuff. But when you start just throwing out stuff, oh my God, the dialogue is great. Oh my God, this dialogue. Because Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta are talking about a damn quarter pounder. Sorry, hamburger royale. That means it's great dialogue. Maybe the actors are delivering the lines in a way that's snappy and quick, and it's more their acting ability and not necessarily anything Tarantino has written. Let me tell you another thing too.
You don't think it's not what he's writing, but what he's writing about?
It can be what he's writing about, but I don't see how some of his dialogue has to do with the movie.
I think it's always the context.
It's always the context. But here's the other thing, though. Here's the other thing. Just because you can string together a bunch of 4-letter words in dialogue does not necessarily mean you're writing something original. Look, I'm not going to sit up here and be the PC police or the bad word police and be like, you can't cuss. That's not what I'm saying. But when you're effing, hey man, go effing over there. It's like, I don't think you've really said anything. You've just said a bunch of bad words.
And I would agree with that. I'm not a huge fan, although I think that some of the things he does, because they're so novel.
The concept,
and his action, I like his action.
The idea,
and he is a movie fan. I get that.
Right.
So.
He's a movie fan. Some of his ideas are good. The ideas are good. I don't necessarily agree with the execution. Like he drops too many, he writes too many N-bombs in a movie to where it's like, what does this even have to do with anything? Like when you watch
Quentin Tarantino, the person, I've said this to you before, but go out and Google Quentin Tarantino on YouTube and look for his interviews and watch his chameleon failures. When he's on Good Morning America, he's Quentin Tarantino. Watch him be interviewed for more than 30 seconds on BET and watch him turn into the biggest reverse Oreo you've ever fucking seen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's insulting. It's pandering. And exactly. I don't even think he knows he's doing it. So
I don't care.
I'm not a big fan of the person.
Right. I'm not a fan of him either. And like I said, his concepts are good. Like the concept, I've watched a lot of his movies. The last one I saw him, the last one he did, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So that's the only movie that I'm aware of that Tarantino has ever written that didn't have the N-word in it. And it was still one of those movies, like I was watching, I was like, why the hell did he make this movie, right? Inglourious Bastards is actually not a bad movie. It really isn't.
No, it's original.
It's original. But the execution of it is what I get it. They're fighting Nazis. At some point, though, like you're going overboard with this.
Yeah.
The Hateful Eight. I wanted to put my fist through his face, right?
I didn't enjoy that movie.
That was insanity at its best. And it's like Samuel L. Jackson. It's like, dude, why would you even star in some nonsense like this?
So I guess we must all agree to disagree because Samuel Jackson's had his back from the beginning. And when
That's
Samuel Jackson's, well, I get that. That's my point. Samuel Jackson, the first time I paid attention to him as an individual, not as an actor, was when he hosted SNL. And he did a monologue I thought was hilarious. And then from that point forward, he seemed very approachable, as a white guy,
right,
learning about a black guy. And then ever since then, and I'm not stupid, but ever since then, he's been very, like I say, Spike Lee. And he and Spike Lee go all the way back. But it seems like I don't know that he would like me because I suspect from his tone, he doesn't hang out with a lot of white people when it's not, business relations. Right. And he's quick to be pro-black and not pro. Well, I'm putting myself a foot in my mouth here, but my point is that he's a little bit scary to a typical white person from his views and the way he talks, and he's got zero tolerance for things. He's not real. He's not interested in being nice for the sake of being nice when it comes to racial relations. Sometimes, I mean, God help you if you fuck up when you're interviewing him and call him the wrong actor. I mean, that's hilarious, and he was right.
That there, he's right on. But for the most part, I get the feeling that Samuel L. Jackson is trying to be a chameleon as well. That's what I get, and I think to a point now that with Samuel L. Jackson, he's trying to live up to what people think that he is. He's trying to be the same person on screen in his real life is what he's trying to do.
You really think it's an act?
I think it's an act. I really do.
But if that's halfway the case, he's always been buddy with Tarantino. And when Tarantino goes on BET and makes an ass of himself and he gets called out on social media, he backs him up. So
right. And that's fine. That's his boy. And he can do that. But that's not like I'm just saying from my perspective as an African-American male and Samuel L. Jackson being African-American, the moment I got a script like that and I saw all that written, they're like, dude, wait a second. If you wrote a script like that, we're supposed to do it, and me and you were friends, I would say to you, hey, Andy, is this necessary? Like, right. This has nothing to do with anything. That's how I would approach it with you. And if Quentin Tarantino and Samuel L. Jackson are friends, I figured that's something Samuel L. Jackson should be able to look at Tarantino and be like, dude, do you realize how much flack we're going to get on? Do you realize what you're going to get on this?
And to bring it full circle back to the original comment of Django, look, Django serves a purpose, right? So it's the same. It serves the same purpose in my mind at a certain level that Blazing Saddles does. And I'm the original Blazing Saddles fan. Right. It may be the greatest comedy of all time, and that's iconic. And Richard Pryor co-wrote it with 4 other people, including Mel Brooks. But because he was in the room, he gives them a certain amount of cover. He gives them a certain amount of clout. He dropped a mini N-bomb and quasi racial sounding things in that movie, things that you could never get away with today, things that they couldn't really get away with then, but it's okay because of that context, and he puts that in there, and the reason it's, by my mind, partially okay is because ultimately the white people look fucking stupid and black guy looks good, so right. It serves a purpose. It puts it all in context. Django is the hero. Django looks competent. All the white people look either stupid and or evil in Django, and it's an action movie. So they throw all of those things in there. It creates the atmosphere of this impossibility for these people to exist in, and yet he somehow navigates it, comes out blowing it up literally. Right. I think that's the environment.
And I get that, but
sure,
that's Tarantino every movie, and Samuel L. Jackson it is in the good majority of his movies. Here's one thing most people don't realize and this was years ago when Denzel Washington did the movie Crimson Tide with Gene Hackman. They brought in Quentin Tarantino, I believe, for script revisions, and Denzel was like, "Yo, Quentin, let's talk, bro, because I didn't see your movies, I didn't see your dialogue. You don't plan on writing none of that nonsense in this movie. right? Apparently there was a confrontation. Quentin Tarantino don't speak Denzel Washington's name in public. So I don't know what Denzel did to Quentin, but he don't speak my man's name.
Well, so if we're gonna compare Quentin Tarantino to Denzel Washington, Crimson Tide is a better movie than anything Quentin Tarantino's ever done. So, I mean, that settles that argument. But
Right.
I will say that I don't know that does he really drop N-bombs in every movie? Because I don't know if I recall a whole lot of N-bombs in either of the Kill Bills, and I don't think there's a whole lot in
It's there. It's there. Trust me.
Is it?
It's there.
And the Bastards doesn't have it because there's no reason for it, is there?
Right. The Bastards has it, but it's not like it mentions it, but it's not like prevalent like every other word, like some of Tarantino's other movies.
Because the context doesn't call for it.
Right, correct. And that's my issue with Tarantino. It's like there's no context in which you're doing that. And it's like I said, if you were Quentin Tarantino and I'm Samuel L. Jackson, and you say Sam, Pierre, I want you to be in this movie. I'm sending you this script over, and I read it, and on every page, I'm dropping at least 10 N-bombs. Me and you, we gotta talk. And I don't understand. And I don't understand why and that's why I say Samuel L. Jackson is trying to be a chameleon as well. You know?
I understand. And you know, in today's world, and we being anti-politically correct, we have had the rule. I've had the rule. You've had the rule separately. And since we've been doing this show podcast before the vidcast, that we will not use the N-bomb and it's not necessary. Right. That's the one political correct thing that we, you know, that's a line we draw and observe. But, you know, there are places for it if it's a historical drama, right? If it's in the context, right? Spike Lee's not going to make a Malcolm X movie without that word being somewhere in there. But he's also not decorating his Christmas trees with it like Quentin Tarantino is.
Exactly.
And Quentin Tarantino could make these movies without dropping that.
He honestly could.
Yeah, I don't know if Samuel L. Jackson tells him differently though. Maybe he comes to him and says, "Look, if I'm going to play this character and it's going to be this kind of person, we need to make the dialogue real because you know that word is used." Right.
I get it, but also you got to look at what your movie subject matter is, and does it enhance it? Does it do anything? If it's got nothing to do with the subject matter, why is that out there? And here's another reason why I tell you that Samuel L. Jackson is being a damn character more than anything, is because if you remember with Snakes on a Plane, it was supposed to be PG-13. And what is Samuel L. Jackson also known for? Dropping MFs. That's what he's known for. And he went and said, yo, if I'm going to be in this movie, then we need to put these MFs in here and make this R-rated. And everybody's like, yeah, you know, we're going to get this. Samuel L. Jackson is playing a character at all times as well.
You know that he did that for exactly the reason you said, because if they had made Snakes on a outbound DC-10, nobody would have seen that shit. Nobody
called it Snakes on a Plane, but they called
listen to me finish. No one has seen that movie if it's not Samuel L. Jackson and there's not goddamn motherfucker all over it. They went to see the stereotype in action, meaning the character that you're talking about that is Samuel L. Jackson. That was a Samuel L. Jackson vehicle. I don't care how it started. And if that vehicle didn't exist, nobody would have seen that movie. So he printed money by playing his character. So he was right from that perspective.
Yes, he printed money. But the money line in that is when he says, I'm tired of these MF and snakes on this MF and plane. And everybody jumps up. Yeah, he said it and everything. It's like, and I guess from a money standpoint, if that made him more money, more power to you. And I'm not saying that offended me in any type of way that he dropped MF. What I'm going at is that's how you know Samuel L. Jackson is always playing a character on screen and off screen, and he's trying to merge the two if he hasn't already successfully merged the two. And if he could get away with it in the Marvel movies, you damn well bet you Samuel L. Jackson would be dropping MFs. It's because he's working for Disney that Disney is like, here's what you're not going to do. But otherwise, even as Nick Fury, he's being Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, all right.
Right? Samuel L. Jackson. And that's what I get. Even in the Capital One commercials, he's being Samuel L. Jackson. I don't distinguish between the two. And that's okay if you're going to be that way. That's
I
okay
get
if
that.
you're going to be that way. But don't try to come at me like I'm real. No, you're not real.
No, my only question is that his real personality or not?
Right.
And we won't know, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, he's
Right.
not ever done anything overtly offensive. He doesn't hurt people. So,
No.
you know, everybody is who they are. So I got no beef with Samuel Jackson. I
Now,
don't know if I want to.
Now, I'm not going to lie. Like early on in his career, one of the funniest things he did, and I don't think it was meant to be, it wasn't meant to be funny because it was a serious movie, the movie Jungle Fever, directed by Spike Lee. And Samuel L. Jackson plays the crackhead. And it's one of the final scenes, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Jungle Fever. And so one of the last scenes, he goes there to get money and everything before his father shoots and kills him because he's like, I'm tired of this crackhead in my house. But he's like, Mom, I'd like to get high because I'm a crackhead. Like for me, that, and I know that was supposed to be funny, but I thought that
he paid
hilarious.
his dues. I mean, he came up. He
Yeah,
was in Coming to America, and Wise Guys. No, Goodfellas. So you know, so yeah, I like Samuel L. Jackson. I think he's a good actor. I like the character. He's a dangerous black guy that white people that doesn't bitch about white people, right? White people can laugh at him and he can say N-bomb and we can all go, oh, and nobody's mad at us when we hear it and smile. So
I don't dislike him either. I think his let me not say his relationship with Quentin Tarantino because I don't know about their personal relationship or whatever. But for me, on the outside looking in, as far as being a professional and what Quentin Tarantino is delivered to him to speak, for me, that's an issue. Now, I'm sure I'm pretty sure me and Samuel L. Jackson could sit down. We can drink some whiskey or some Cavassier or whatever.
Right.
We could trade stories and MF each other and be okay. But if he wanted to broach the subject of what do you think about my moves with Quentin Tarantino, I'm going to let him know how I feel. It's like, is that necessary at all times?
Right. All right. So let's switch to something else. That this is the heavy lifting part of the show. Okay. So we talked about Ooga Booga, and we talked about Quentin Tarantino impromptu. Let's talk about the news this week coming out of the sports world. One of the events, the Olympics, is coming up, postponed from Tokyo, August of 2020. It's not going to be August of 2021. All the trials are going on. The Japanese people are the public, taken as a general population, speaking for an entire nation, would like to not have the Olympics because COVID is going crazy over there. Because those people apparently didn't get it early, weren't really taken seriously, and generally don't like vaccines. So now they've been caught with their sleeves down, and it's running relatively rampant. And they don't want a bunch of foreign visitors coming. They just as soon not have the Olympics. The rest of the world's like, fuck you, we're coming. And one of the people that is coming, and we've mentioned this before as a kind of abstract, but now it's real. South Park mentioned it as an abstract, but it's very real. There's a person named Laurel Hubbard. This person, we're going to call her a she, is a transgender weightlifter from New Zealand. You know, very sensitive, and don't mean disrespect anybody on that level. Everything I read about sexual dysphoria seems to make it a terrible thing. You know, nothing but sympathy for these fellow humans of ours. But we also live in a practical world, and I have a problem. A lot of people have a problem with the fact that this person was a mediocre weightlifter, and is built like a weightlifter, was a weightlifter for their entire life, trained, and at some point within the last decade, 2012, I think, had gender reassignment process. I don't know to what degree it was completed, but their testosterone levels are below standards for more than 12 months. And therefore, the New Zealand Olympic Committee, the IOC, has determined that she can compete as a woman per their standards, but she still has the musculature and the skeletal structure and the experience of a male having competed in weightlifting. And now at the age of 42, suddenly is good enough to go to the Olympics, whereby younger females from her nation aren't going to go because they're not as, I'm going to presume, not as capable a weightlifter as she is. And I have beef with that. I really do. So that's what's going on right now. It's going to happen. It's a done deal. It's now not an abstract. Now it's a real thing. Men, formerly men, now assigned women are competing in female sports, and we presume that in most cases they will dominate, because we presume that there is a difference in the way someone who's assigned male at birth physically grows as opposed to someone who's assigned female at birth and physically grows. Now, I have another point to abstract from this, but I'm interested in what your talk is on this point. Irv isn't here. You drop the real talk.
Well, it's a sticky subject, to be honest with you.
Okay.
It probably isn't fair, and I think I probably feel that way as well. I don't know how you handle this, though. That's the thing. I don't know how you handle it. You can't tell someone like, well, you can't compete. You can't do that, right? Because of whatever reason. You cannot tell them that. So I think that's where your issue comes in. Like, how do you handle this? What's your baseline? Like, the baseline says, like, okay, here's what you have to meet, and if you meet these, then you can compete, right? That being said, that's a sticky subject, and I'm not sure how you handle. So yeah, like I said, I'm not sure how you handle it, because it's going to take somebody with some balls. Probably a bad pun.
Yeah, but you did that on purpose. Pierre at pierrerobinson.com.
No, like it's probably.
So let's look at it from the perspective of all of the women around him,
right,
as opposed to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is it fair to them? Because many of them, more than half of them, are saying we're woke. It's 2021, but this isn't fair to us.
Right. No, I get it. If that's what makes it such a subject. Is like, how do you address it? And I think at some point somebody's going to have to address it, and I don't know how you do that.
Okay, so let me ask these impromptus then. I'll draw a couple of parallels. So number one, it's always ridiculous. You could say something like ridiculous, like what if Michael Jordan or somebody from today, what if LeBron dropped into the WNBA, right? And that's not going to happen. But the argument 6 months ago was, what if a male that transitioned to female dropped into a sport where gender makes a difference? There are some sports where it may not make a difference, like fencing or, I don't know, water polo, but even water polo, it probably makes a difference, but so, does it make a difference? And what if it happened? But now it's really happening. So now the academic ridiculousness ain't that ridiculous. So, if and you have the WNBA, and you have the NBA, and there's a difference.
Right.
There's a difference, right? So let's come back and visit this. But I said this to you, was it about 6 years ago that this guy came down? So let's talk about Oscar Pistorius, because before he murdered his wife, he competed. He's a South African sprinter who has the bottom of his legs are missing.
Yeah,
I don't recall
legs.
that. Right. Is it a birth defect or what?
I believe he was born that way. He didn't have the lower part of his legs.
Right. So his legs didn't develop below the knee, and that's critical, right? Because he does have mid-leg range motion. In other words, he has knees. He can bend his legs, and so he can put on a apparatus that emulates the foot, allows him to walk, allows him to run. And there's like a series of questions, because number one, they're somewhat springy. So does that give him an advantage over people who have to use their foot muscles to spring? But put that aside, because I'm assuming they can adjust that, come up with an accommodation that is approximate. Put that aside. This man went and competed and did well. I don't think he medaled, but he competed
for South Africa. Last place. He came in last place
in the Olympics.
Right, in the Olympics. He did.
He also went to the Paralympics, right? So my perspective is, look, if you're good enough to compete on the main stage, then don't take away an opportunity, and don't front on the side stage that is put aside for people who have a special case. Why is this man, if he's good enough to go to the Olympics, why is this man over there dominating the Paralympics? That's stupid. Okay, so do we agree on that?
We agree on that. Yes.
We also agree that they let them happen, so people will disagree with our perspective. Now, I go to the same concept. Okay, now we have a situation where someone who is born female is now born male, is now female, and is going to compete in female sports and do well, we presume, or not do well, but took an opportunity from a fellow athlete from New Zealand that was female that will not get to go because there's a finite number of spots. So if nothing else, that is something. Why in that scenario, if we're going to allow this and the birth assignment doesn't matter, it's only the level of testosterone in the blood, which really doesn't impact the development of an athlete over the length of their career and their lifetime and their childhood. Why are we distinguishing between male and female sports at all at this point? This situation now, theoretically, if you do an ultimate extrapolation, eliminates the need for female versus male sports. Why don't we just all compete in the same sport? Since it doesn't matter that a male can go flip a switch and become female, and I don't mean to diminish the process or the need, but the result is the same. Now they've crossed a line, and now they're going to be over there. What's to stop the macho man from doing that or whatever? You know, seriously. And if that's the case, why do we consider sex at all when we do athletics? Why don't we just say,
do you like my toy? Do you like my toy right here?
Okay, Steve.
I love your toy.
He loves your toy. Now go. Thank you. Okay. Anything can happen. That's blur. Anything can happen on the Brother and the Man show. So I get, like,
Brother and the Little Man.
This is why this is such a.
You guys should do your own show.
I know.
No, I'm seriously.
I get it, but you know, in this case, though, if you're going to sit up here, if so, the women in New Zealand, they're upset, right? And I get what their point is, right? I do, because I get how they feel. But what are you going to tell this other person? You can't compete at all?
Yes.
What are you going to tell them?
You could tell them you can't compete. Or you can go to you create a trans Olympics. You create a Paralympics. I don't know. But what I will say is that you cannot modify the many to cater to the one or the few.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's what this is. They're going way out of their way to cater to a special case, because we must cater to all special cases. And I don't mean to and this very quickly is a slippery slope where I can start talking about we got to cater to Black people, and that's not where I'm trying to go. But people who we do observe on this show that the victims seem to be running the asylum right now in many cases. The people who are upset have the loudest blowhorn and bullhorn, and are using it the most. So they're the loudest, they're getting the most attention from the media, and then getting amplified in the media. This is that concept made practical. This is becoming manifest in the real world. And Pierre is Mizad. So that's where my perspective is that, I don't know what to do. I agree with you. And I don't have a problem with this person or anyone like him. And I apologize if people think that I do, but I think that, yes, because you're unique and special in this scenario, you have to be treated specially. And, I'm trying to come up with real world parallels.
Right. Correct. No,
mm-hmm.
No, like I said, I think overall I agree with you. The issue though is that you can't tell someone that they can't. You can't tell someone they can't compete.
You can tell someone they can't compete. They tell people they can't compete all the time, but because they're performance enhancing. Look, if this person shot up with steroids, they drop him like a heartbeat.
This is true.
If they were in America in college up until the Supreme Court yesterday, if they had earned money, they'd be dropped in a minute because they lose their amateur status. We pick and choose our participants.
A whole can of worms, though.
How?
You don't think you are?
No, I don't think you are.
The moment you tell somebody that you can't, you won't.
No, I'm not saying that you can't compete. I'm saying you go back and compete where you came from.
But where is that?
He was born and raised male. I would draw that line.
Mm-hmm.
And I would do it because it's based on common sense.
Right.
If we start modifying everything we do based upon what society determines as politically correct, which is what this is, then we're going to end up in a situation where where common sense goes out the window.
I think eventually you get to a point.
And if that's not the case, throw sex out of sports altogether, which is my point.
I don't think that's going to happen, though. I think eventually they're going to categorize that in the Olympics. I think that's what they're going to do. Eventually, that's what's going to happen.
Well, and that's where I'm getting at is that right now, sex as a concept isn't binary anymore. If society, if parts of society, if what they believe becomes the norm, then sex will no longer become a binary. If that's the case, and I'm not going to make the argument against that because I'm only one voice, and I again don't mean to offend anyone, so I'm willing to be wrong. But if that is the case, then sex as a concept in sports altogether needs to be done away with. And that's where I'm suggesting we need to go. And if we don't like that, which I don't think we will, that's where we're at. If sex in sports matters, then let's be clear about what sex is. If that line is going to be blurred and people are going to be allowed to cross it, and it's based upon how they feel at the time or whatever the definition is. Right now, it's the amount of testosterone in the bloodstream. Then we need to get rid of sex in sports all the time. So get rid of the WNBA, get rid of women's powerlifting, get rid of all of it. Women are more than welcome to compete in the NHL and the MLB. I don't know that there's a rule against them competing in the NFL. No one has tried it.
Right.
Basketball has 2 leagues. All jokes aside, get rid of it. Let everybody compete to the best of their physical merits, regardless of who they are, transsexual, bi, whatever the categories are. And again, I'm not going to try to remember them all because I don't want to diminish them. But hermaphrodites, however these people are defined, all the variety that exists in God's world, let them all compete. Let us all compete because. Because how come, there's not a fat guy football league. There's not an over 40 football league.
Well, no, but I do think eventually what happens, because a lot of this has to do with wherever, even though the IOC says they have their particular rules, I think a lot of things are probably cultural based off of where you're located in the world, where you're located in the Olympics. And I think if I'm predicting the future and how I know the world works, how I know how society works in different points of the country, I think eventually what's going to happen is you're gonna have a situation where, let's say you have a man that has transitioned into a woman after X number of years. And then I believe what's eventually going to happen is the Olympics is going to be in some region that doesn't recognize that, or whatever it's going to be. I'm not sure of all of the different religions and areas of the world. So I'm just speculating what I know as far as how I've seen society operate. And so eventually what's going to happen is somebody's going to come out and say, yeah, I know the IOC says this, but in this country, here's what we do. And that's not allowed. And so you can't compete. Don't even come into the country. Eventually, some country is going to host the Olympics that does that. And then you're going to have a whole different problem. So then you're going to have a lot of boycotts. Countries going to say, we're not going to do that. And so no country doesn't want to see that revenue go away. And so I think eventually what happens, like some countries are going to have to acquiesce on whatever their religious beliefs or whatever beliefs they have. That's what they're going to have to do. And so I think what eventually happens to kind of compromise and appeal to eventually, I don't know why he's doing this to me right now, but I wish he'd leave the room because this is nonsense. But I think in order to appease everyone, because I think they're going to have to do this. If you're going to have women getting that upset, or you're going to have people saying whatever they say, and you're going to eventually, let me just throw a country out there because I don't know how
I
they
wish you
feel
would, so
about
I
it.
could tell you why you're wrong.
I
Give
I
me an
don't
example.
I don't know how Japan feels about trans athletes. I don't know. I haven't looked it up, right?
I don't think they're
But
opposed to it.
but eventually some country, I don't know let's say Brazil, right? And I don't know if that's Brazil. I'm just going to use them as an example.
Let's use
If
a better example. Let's say Saudi Arabia.
Okay, let's say Saudi Arabia. If they
Saudi
ever,
Arabia is never going to host the Olympics, so your
right?
point is not valid.
Okay, you don't think my
The
point's valid?
IOC is never going to send the
You don't
Olympics
think
to a
so?
country
You
that
don't think the
no.
IOC will do that? I think eventually what's going to happen is that is going to happen. I think that is going to happen. And so what the IOC will have to do is like, okay, so and so, they'll probably take the Olympics out of that country. But what if they don't, Let's say for the sake of the argument they don't. I think what eventually happens in order to probably not tell athletes you can't show up and you can't compete because this is how they feel in Saudi Arabia,
Right.
because they view things different. I
I
think
use Saudi Arabia for a specific reason because if Vince McMahon was running the IOC
if Vince
and
Vince
Saudi
McMahon would
Arabia,
still go. Right.
yeah, right,
Vince,
and
right,
you see it, and
right.
he doesn't let his women compete,
And
and
and eventually though, but the thing about it is there's gonna be, because what's not being thought about is the human factor, the human thought of like, okay, here's how this person feels about this particular subject, right? I mean, we as society can feel a particular way. Hey, I'm open to it. Everybody go compete. That may be society. I'm not in charge of the IOC though, and that's the problem. And so you're going to have those situations where people's personal conflicts are going to come into play. And so I think what eventually happens, and I could be way wrong, but I think what eventually happens is this all comes to a head eventually. And then I think they're going to make a trans category in the Olympics. That's what I think they're going to do. And then you appease so many people. Now I could
but
be totally wrong that they won't do that, but
that'll
just
never happen.
just looking at
Here's why it'll never happen,
what
because trans people and people that are not let's call it like it is. The vast majority, more than the number of people who don't cleanly identify as either male or female, represent less than 1 in 10,000.
right,
It's a hugely small slice of society, and that's putting that does put aside the concept of it possibly becoming socially cool, and people pursuing it not for biological reasons, but because they becoming a social trend. Oh, I don't identify as anything. Okay, fine. So there's going to be people that fall into that bucket. We'll put them aside. But people who suffer from sexual dysphoria or related psychological issues, whether they're biological, meaning manifest based, or they're mental, those people are extremely small slice. They speak with a weight that far outweighs their proportion in society, and the people that are that, and the people who champion them, um, are not going to tolerate being put into a special case. The special case would be extremely low and
right,
small. Even if they all became athletes, it's going to be, they're not going to go be part of the Special Olympics. They're not going to create their own trans Olympics
right.
or other
Well,
Olympics.
no,
They're
that's
not going to be put. They're
well,
not
no,
going to be
that's
put
not
into a
going to
special
happen.
category. They're going to insist on being whatever the hell it is they want to be, and they're going to identify as primarily male or female and insist on competing. Or they're going to actually agree with me and say, let's blow it all out of the water, which is where I expect it actually to go
That
at some
I
point.
don't think it's ever going to go that particular way where you're not going to have an Olympics that is separated by male 100 and female 100. You're never going to have that.
And I agree with you. You know why? Because women are not going to tolerate not being able to compete, and they
But
can't compete, taken as a whole, with male physical
but
bodies.
but you
And
see, but check it out. You see this happen all the time when like there's the example of the girl that was a great wrestling champion, and then what happened was like because she pinned somebody's boy, the boy's parents got mad and blah 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 and want to blow up the whole thing because their son got pinned by a girl, right? And so you're always going to have that subset of society of like, okay, I lost when I felt I shouldn't have lost, so therefore I want to blow up the whole thing because it's not fair because that person had this advantage or whatever. So you're always going to have that. And I think there's no bigger drumbeat than having the Olympics on the world stage where that can possibly happen. And so I think you are going to have a lot of people that are going to be like, well, that person had an advantage because they were born this way, blah, blah, blah. So I think you're always going to have those folks. It's happening with the women in New Zealand right now. That's happening right now. So
go back to my original point. Why does the WNBA exist? Why do we not just have women try out for the Lakers? Why?
Because
don't get my point. Answer the question.
Right, because they won't be able to compete against the men. They won't.
I welcome the exception, but generally speaking, they're not going to compete. They're not as tall. They're not as strong. They're not going to leap as high. They can leap higher than I will. They're great athletes, but they're not going to compete with LeBron. Right. So
that's why you have NBA and WNBA. It's not. But this isn't so clear cut though. Is the point I'm making? Like, try to take out of whatever you feel is like what's an advantage or what's an advantage. What I'm saying to you is like, okay, let's take this for example. What if I was the parent that like, I'm the wrestling parent, and my son goes up against your daughter, and your daughter pins my son. There's always that human condition. It's like, well, she should have been competing with him anyway, so that's unfair or whatever. That's what I'm saying to you.
I get that, but a different scenario. But your daughter, not your son,
right?
Your daughter works her entire life to become an outstanding athlete. She's protein, she's running, she's endurance, she's lifting, she is gifted, so she's taller and stronger and thicker. But she's a female, and she works her butt off and puts an entire lifetime, and then as a junior in high school gets to the state championships and sees someone come across the stage, or in college for the female wrestling championship of the state. And that person was named George 4 years earlier and has low testosterone, but is a foot taller and has 100 pounds and is, classed as a heavyweight because there's nothing above it, and destroys your daughter. Now, how is that fair? How is that feminist? How is that pro-woman? How is that anything other than a joke? And it's a made-up scenario, but this weightlifting thing was a made-up scenario 2 years ago.
Right.
It's going to happen.
Right. But someone, because they lose, in my opinion, because somebody is always going to find an excuse like, well, I lost, and surely I should not have lost, or there was something wrong. That's how people are going to act. And totally irrelevant.
Ronald Reagan did a thing when he wanted to win a political point at the State of the Union. I'm kind of a Reagan fan, historically speaking, and the man's not been president for 40 years. But Ronald Reagan was the first to do this. He came out and he said, this is what I want to do. Well, I don't agree with that. I want to lower taxes. And then he tells a story about a small business owner and blah, blah, blah in Kansas. And he lost his business because his tax burden and the regulations were too high. And his name is George Smith. And George Smith is with us here tonight. And look at George Smith and how he's had to declare bankruptcy. And look at George Smith. And you present a unique perspective on your broad argument, and it pulls at the heartstrings, and it's absolutely true. So you can't call it a lie, but it's entirely disingenuous, right? If pick somebody, if my neighbor kills my daughter, that man is going to die, and it's not rational for me to go kill him. I'm not in a rational place. I'm taking the law into my own hands. I'm doing something. But no. But my point is, let me get to my point. You and I would say if a third party did that, that was terrible. And I can't imagine when he's there, but clearly he cannot take the law into his own hands. The man should have been arrested, taken to prison, charged, put on trial, and if guilty, sent to prison for the rest of his life or whatever's appropriate. And nobody should be doing vigilante justice. If it happens to me, that rational thinking goes out the window. So you're saying that there's always going to be somebody who's offended by the inappropriateness.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm giving you an academic.
I know that's not what you're saying, but
well, then quit bringing it up. Why are you throwing that against that?
But this is the society. Times have changed, and I think people need to get with that particular point. That times have changed. That's just how it is, and people need to evolve, and people need to get out of the thinking of like, well, my son lost, and surely I felt he was the number one, so he shouldn't have lost. So therefore, it's somebody else's fault because people need to get out of that mindset.
We'll take a different approach.
That's just how it is.
We'll take a different approach. I agree with you 100%. People who are affected by a scenario like this should not be part of the debate. Right?
But that's
great.
The thing.
Now we put them aside.
I am not going to happen to them, and that's the thing. It doesn't become an issue. It doesn't become an issue until it happens to them.
I'm telling you that it's not happened to me, and it's an issue.
Okay.
Then if you look, I'm not a big fan of the clean and jerk, but if I was going to be a fan of the clean and jerk, and I saw this man come on the stage and compete in the women's clean and jerk competition, it ain't going to be genuine to me.
Right.
Fact.
And that's fair.
And I don't have a dog in that fight, and I'm not other than being a fan. Right. So it's not appropriate. It's not right. It's not fair to the competitors. It doesn't make any common sense. And what you're doing is you're warping common sense to appease a social value that's based upon a real biological situation that is not this person's fault, and they're not a bad person, and they're doing what they're allowed to do, and they're doing what their heart tells them to do, and they're competing in their hobby, their sport, their livelihood. I have no problem with that. I don't think that they should be allowed to compete with other women, especially in a stage that is the Olympics. It's unfortunate, but life is unfortunate. And
right. I just don't think you can tell someone they can't compete, though.
I'm telling you, we do it all the time, and we have to tell these people they can't compete. I disagree with you 100% on this. You're wrong. You can't not tell people they can't do things, because the practical impact of that is that anybody can do whatever they want all of the time. That's a fact. If you say you can't tell somebody they can't compete, then you have to allow everyone to compete. At which point, I should be trying out for the Lakers. And maybe I don't make the
Lakers.
cut.
You're not making the team, though.
Okay, that's a fair point, but you have to cater to me. I can find something where I could compete. I identify. I mean, this is going to sound stupid, and this is the running joke, but I identify. Okay, cool. I identify as a young male around the age of 6 from Colorado. And as a result, I'm going to be competing with Ethan for T-ball or baseball or whatever he might be playing come spring. And I'm probably going to dominate. But because you can't tell me I can't compete, I may be batting cleanup for his little league team. You know my point? And I know that's ridiculous, but if the man can become a woman, and gender is what you make of it, and race is a perspective, and it's how you feel, and not how you're born or the unmutable quality of your skin color, which society forces you to recognize as a divider. Then who's to say that age is? Why can't I compete? Why can't, let's be a little bit realistic. Why can't Tiger compete on the seniors tour? Because Tiger isn't senior qualified. He's not that old, but why can't he go compete? Why is there a divider line based on age? What if he throws his back out? Now can he qualify? What if his testosterone levels drop because he's approached middle age earlier, physically speaking? What if he physically suppresses that? He still has the swing. He still has the body. So, why isn't he competing against Arnold Palmer?
Mm-hmm.
You can tell people they can't compete. And in this case, you have to tell them they can't compete. Because to be perfectly frank, to call it what it is, he's a woman, but physically speaking, he's not a woman. Physically speaking, he has the body of a man. And he's going to take advantage of that to try to do well in women's weightlifting. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I disagree with you 1,000%.
I know you do. I know you disagree, right?
You can't tell them no. That's a terrible argument.
Yeah, I just don't. I just don't think you can tell someone they can't compete. I just don't like. I just don't think you can do that. I don't think that's right either.
We don't think that we can tell people that they can't go somewhere based upon the color of their skin, right? Because it's an unmutable quality that should not make a difference and does not make a difference past the skin level. And the skin color doesn't make a difference. We're all the same. We have the same range of capacities. Some people are stupid, some are smart, some are physically gifted, some are not. Some take care of themselves, some do not. Some people are great athletes, some people are great orators, some people are dumbasses that can't do anything well. But we don't say that you can't come in here because you're black or you shouldn't go in there because you're white, because that's not appropriate.
People don't say it. They just make sure they imply it very strongly to it.
Well, it's a cultural thing, and we're trying to undo that as much as we can. So you and I don't agree with that. So this show doesn't agree with that concept, right? Mm-hmm. We are actively against that very concept. But but that's what it amounts to. You can't tell people. I'm forgetting my point. It's not the same as my point.
Right.
Right. So we could come up with a concept where people that are stupid shouldn't be allowed to vote because they don't have the mental capacity. And we would have to define what that is. But if someone, let's say that we lived in an oligarchical society where you had to be a genius. Neither of us are an IQ of 160, so let's draw that theoretical line.
Well, you may not have one, but I do.
You're not that smart. I'm smart enough to know you're not that smart.
Oh, okay.
You may be smarter than me. Richard may be that smart, but if let's say the IQ is 160, so a very small number of people who are extremely intellectual or at least intellectually capable will be the only ones allowed to vote, and we will presume that they will do a better blah blah blah. Okay, well. All right, well, let me go take the IQ test, and I got the answer key, and I cheated, and now you can't tell me I can't vote. The reasoning goes out the window. So you're going to tell someone that they can't compete because they identify as being a woman, even though from a different perspective, they're not a woman. So now we're arguing about the definition, but the definition is meaningless if you're going to say you can't tell somebody no. Mm. You have to allow people in who use steroids. You have to allow people in who, you have to allow people who have 3 wives be legally defined as married because you can't tell them no, right? So where do you draw the line? All right, so we'll go on to something else. So having mentioned Vince, let's talk about the WWE. Let's also talk about that we're an hour and 15 into this light show that's only going to go for 45 minutes. So let's keep that in mind. So you wanted to talk about the WWE and maybe we'll talk about the NBA and we'll talk about sports in general in a post-COVID world.
Right.
And we'll continue to laugh our asses off at this. This is season 2, episode 2 of Brother Man with special guests Ethan and Siri.
That's right.
All right. So what do you got on WWE?
So yesterday I finally watched it for the first time in a while.
You watched Raw?
I watched Raw. I was preparing I'm prepping myself for SummerSlam. Like, I think these days, like it's kind of hard for me to watch wrestling. It just is. That being said, the people I do try to catch or keep up with on a regular basis are very entertaining to me. I keep up on them. So I decided, though, since Peacock Network now has all WWE everything and has all the pay-per-views. Like I had the WWE Network before. I wasn't watching all the time, so I got rid of it. And Peacock TV and WWE came up with like a deal And so now if you had WWE Network before, now it's through Peacock TV,
Right.
NBC's service. And so I said, okay, I'm
Similar
going to
price.
watch SummerSlam, similar price. So I decided like what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch SummerSlam this year. Easily of the 4 big pay-per-views, what do they run? Like 12, 13, 14 a year.
Yeah, but this is one of the big 4.
I'm a fan of the big 4, right? And SummerSlam for me is always usually my favorite one, even over WrestleMania, because they jazz it up a little bit for SummerSlam and do something a little bit different. And to me, that's always been the more compelling of the big 4. And so I'm going to watch SummerSlam this year. And so I decided to prepare for it. I'm going to start watching Raw every week. It's hard for me to watch SmackDown because through the years, I've never watched SmackDown. Raw's the flagship program. Nothing against it. Raw's the flagship program. I think they're trying to gear SmackDown towards that right now. So I watched it. Bobby Lashley is the WWE champion. And incidentally enough, Bobby Lashley is actually from here in Denver, Colorado. Brother is yoked, all that stuff. And so he's the champion, very entertaining, very over, unlike what he was before.
Extremely charismatic. He's exactly the right guy in exactly the right place.
Right guy.
Exactly the right time.
MVP is doing the best work of his career. And this is the role, in my opinion, the role of a lifetime for him. He's done a spectacular job. And so I look forward to that. On SmackDown, the updates I do get, I've always liked Roman Reigns. I've always liked the Shield. So I've always liked Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose. Now John Moxley on AEW. I won't even get into that train wreck of an organization. And
you don't like AEW?
I'm not a fan. And
wow.
Then,
okay.
And we need to say that for a show, but and I really like Seth Rollins, right? So I like those guys. Like those guys are entertaining to me. And so, and then of the women, Sasha Banks, Bailey, I like them. Sasha Banks is in my opinion, she's the best female wrestler on the planet. She was named I believe she was named the #1 wrestler overall on the planet this year. Sasha Banks is that good.
Yeah, so, and there's no reason that she shouldn't be competing with the men since we can't tell her no and we can't tell the men no.
They did that with China and they did that with someone else. But,
right.
Tessa Blanchard and TNA, right. They did that.
And how'd that work out?
Well, Tessa had some issues. And then she got stuck out of the country or something like that. I don't know what happened.
So,
but so those are the ones I watch, and those are the people that I pay attention to. When Lester's there, I pay attention to him because Paul Heyman knows how to really talk, right? Otherwise, I don't necessarily find wrestling appealing enough to where I can commit that type of time to watch an entire show, right? Like, ideally, I would record it most times and just go to the people that I want to see, the people that are appealing. And so that's where WWE stands right now. Lashley is on a dominant run. I guess he's about to go against Kofi Kingston. And I kind of subscribe to the Jim Cornette theory on certain things, right? To where, like, there's no way. You look at yoked up Bobby Lashley. Like, this brother is like, there's no fat on him. And Bobby Lashley is 45 years old, right? And then you look at Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston's chest is caved in. There is no way in a street fight, even by accidental, that Kofi Kingston would ever be able to compete with Bobby Lashley. There's no way, but they're going to feud. And I'm okay with it.
Well, no, it's wrestling. It's made up. So there's no reason that Rey Mysterio should ever have been WWE heavyweight champion, but he was. And that's okay. So, they're coming back. It's been surreal. You are where I have been, which is that you grew up a wrestling fan, and wrestling when it's good can be really good, but wrestling, generally speaking, is not nearly as good as we want it to be.
No.
And you get to a point where you just don't have the time, and you don't have it's harder to get geeked up about things as you get older because you just don't have the imagination. You don't have the energy. And if you're not going along for the ride, suddenly the ride ain't that exciting. So it's hard to get excited about something that you know is fake and you got other things to do and you've been working all day. So it's hard to come home on a Friday night and put on SmackDown. So I get it. You're approaching. It sounds like you're approaching where I've been for 20 years. I want wrestling to be great, and there are times when I really enjoyed watching it, and there were times when I enjoyed watching it more so than I can relate to today, 20
Mhm.
years later. But it is interesting still. I do pay attention to it, like from the outside looking in, like you're talking about with SmackDown. They're for more than a year they've had no audience, which
Mhm.
I never thought they'd pull off, and then it's surreal to watch. But they're getting ready to go back on tour mid-July. What you watched last night on Raw was getting ready for Money in the
Mhm.
Bank in
Right.
front of SuperSlam,
Mhm.
um, and they're gonna Money in the Bank will be the first pay-per-view that'll be in front of a live audience, capacity crowd in Texas. So it'll be interesting.
I will
It'll be surreal,
I will say this, and this just goes towards how Vince McMahon, even at well, how old is Vince now? 77.
something like that.
That even still, in his diminished mental capacity, that he is still a cut above the rest. And here's what I mean by that.
In what way?
I'm going to tell you right now. So you remember last year, no one knew what was going to do with COVID. And he said the show is still going to go on. So they did WrestleMania in the Performance Center with no fans there. And the wrestlers still acted like there were fans there. They're pointing at the crowd and stuff. And so they caught flack for that. It's like, well, that looks stupid. You had
Right.
Drew McIntyre win over Lesnar on the biggest stage, and he's pointing to no fans there, blah, blah, blah. Right. And so, and part of what's make some of the wrestlers, like if I watched it with no sound and didn't know the fans were there, WrestleMania was great last year. They did an awesome job. It would have been better if it had fans, right?
Right.
Because if you just watch it, it was a great show. But not having the fans really took away from it, right?
Yep.
And so what Vince finally did is introduce that Thunderdome. And I think that's one of the better things he could have done because even for me, when I was watching it, it just looked weird not having fans there and people coming out and still doing their thing. And at
Right.
least with that Thunderdome, the way he did it and everything, I was like, I can buy into this, and I'm actually into this, right? I can actually, feel something because he's got some type of ambiance, something going on to where you can see it. And AEW never caught on that, probably because they don't have the budget for it, even though they try to pretend like they do. I could get on AEW all day. I think it's good there's another wrestling promotion, but they probably need somebody in charge that actually knows what the hell they're doing.
We can do a whole we will do a whole episode
Yeah.
about AEW because I
Mhm.
would have assumed that you were the world's biggest fan on AEW. They've got some talent. They're in a position to try to be the minor league of wrestling, and they're doing it at a time when they do have a budget. They have the Khan family behind them, so they've got they've got people from the outside trying to make a run, kind of like
But,
what Turner
but
did in the
yeah, but
'90s.
but Tony doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
No, I get
And
that.
the people that he made EVPs, sorry, Kenny Omega in America just ain't over like he was in Japan. And he ain't
With
that good of
wrestling
a
fans, he
wrestler.
is.
Yeah, with wrestling fans, he may be. Some wrestling fans, they can't grow their audience though. Even with no competition on a Wednesday night, their audience hasn't grown. That should tell you
Okay,
something.
let's do another whole show about that because I'm
Let's do, yeah.
interested when
Hmm.
you talk about that. I introduced the immediate question, which is, what do they do then?
Hmm.
So we'll leave that for another show.
All right.
But WWE's coming back, and I wanted to talk about Goldberg, and I have an
Hmm.
interesting thought as the show's gone on about that. Goldberg is so I'm a little older than you. I'll be 50 next year, and I grew up in a time when I was your son's age that I watched the evolution of a man named Hulk Hogan. So I can go back to before there was a Hogan, at least as far as being a minor fan. And I saw Hogan in Rocky 3, and I was there when he had a Saturday morning cartoon, and I watched him be the American Dream right up to the steroid problem and his trip to Hollywood, which failed, and his return from
Hmm.
Hollywood, which turned into Nitro and the NWO. And I remember flipping through in my young 20s when I hadn't been watching wrestling because it was dumb, and seeing Hulk Hogan with a black beard and being a bad guy surrounded by other people that I knew who I thought were gone,
Right.
like the Macho Man, and going, holy crap, what is this? and it sucked me in for another 5 years. Just that novelty and becoming a Bret Hart fan, and you know the whole story. So you know, it's interesting to me. And one of the people that is still from that era, from the tail end of that era, and still floating around, he may be the last if we think about it, is Goldberg. Goldberg is on a Legends contract with WWE. He was signed to do 2 fights a year. He did 1 fight earlier this year. He's got to do 1 more this year. That could always be thrown out. They're happy to waive that for him if they come to an agreement. But if they want him to fight, he's got to fight. He can't go to AEW, which is what I think they're probably trying to prevent. He's not going to go to Japan. He doesn't need to do it. He's doing it because he can, and he's getting paid. But what is that last fight going to be for him? Because if it's coming up somewhere between here and WrestleMania, which is March, so it's somewhere in the next 9 months, it's probably his last fight. Does he go out as a loser the way Kurt Angle does? Or and Kurt Angle had another fight and then decided to retire early. So that's not entirely them screwing him over, but he did lose his last fight. And I don't think Goldberg's going to agree with that. I don't think he needs to agree with that. Sting was in a position where he wanted to be in the Hall of Fame, and so he didn't have as much leverage. Goldberg is there. So they did, but he won 1 and lost 2. Goldberg can win his last fight. If he doesn't, he doesn't have to fight, right? So what do they do with him?
Well, that's a good question. Like Vince McMahon will tell you, he believes in the time-honored tradition, that on your last match, you go out on your back. That's what he believes. The only person I can think of that did not go out on their back on their last match, The Undertaker, right?
The Undertaker didn't go out on his back. Neither did The Rock.
No, The Rock did. His last. Oh, wait, no.
Wait.
Yes, he did.
He's wrestled half a dozen times since that last match.
No. Here's what you're thinking. Rock has only wrestled one
His
time.
WrestleMania matches over the last 10 years.
It was one impromptu match where him and John Cena went up against the Wyatt family. And The Rock took his stuff off. It was impromptu. He rock bottomed somebody, and they counted that as a match. But The Rock's last official match against John Cena in the rematch, he lost that match. Stone Cold Steve Austin went out on his back. Shawn Michaels in his last official match. I don't count that Saudi thing they did last year.
I get it. Yeah. I watched Ric Flair's last official match before he came out of retirement for IRS reasons, but he lost to Shawn.
Which should have been match of the year. Like the storytelling in that match is outstanding and even when Shawn Michaels pulls the trigger with, I'm sorry, I love you, and sent him out on retirement.
But
Great
it's
stuff.
not
Go
absolute. Triple H ain't going out on his back.
We could do a whole nother show on Triple H. Oh my God. Like, I'm probably going to piss some people off.
Is he actually, when was the last time he wrestled? He may be retired and they just never announced
the last time he wrestled, his last official match that I'm aware of, there's that Saudi nonsense him and Shawn Michaels did. He tore his pec off the bone or something like that.
Right.
But his last official match that I remember, he went against Dave Bautista. And Bautista
won.
Yeah, Bautista wanted that to be his last match, though. Bautista was like I want it to be my last match. Triple H, he hooked me up. He made me what I am today, so it's my honor to lose to him. And he had never lost him before. So that's another person. Dave Bautista, his last match, he went out on his back. So
Bautista's not done that, though. He's not done. He announced earlier this year that Guardians of the Galaxy is his last movie. He's too old to be putting up with the makeup. He's made his point. He's had his experience. He's going to move on. He's been in that role for what will be 5 movies. He's good. He's not going to wrestle as a male anymore. He's going to transition.
Okay.
He's going to go into the women's division of WWE, and he's going to dominate until he's 70.
Okay.
And you are going to allow it because you won't say no.
Can we get serious for a moment?
You don't know that that's not true, and you would allow it.
He said that he was done with the Guardians role because He says
And
he's
that's
over
fair.
50 years old and he doesn't know if he can continue to get into that type of shape to where he's going to go around with his shirt off. That's what he said.
Oh, that's bullshit. You know
That's
it.
what he said.
Rick Flair, he's going to grow some breasts. He's halfway there now. He's going to totally dominate Charlotte
You
Flair.
realize, but he won't have to keep doing unless he's blowing his money. Dave Bautista's getting paid doing movies.
It's a joke that has some value for our show. Let's not say it's Dave Bautista. Let's say it's Goldberg. Let's say he announces his retirement and then comes out of retirement as Whoopi Goldberg and starts killing it in the women's division. He could come run down at the end of the women's championship match, and he could spear Charlotte Flair.
They can
and then blow smoke out of his nose.
They can see who's got the best spear in the history of the business. Although I think Goldberg throws the best spear in the history of the business.
You're ignoring my point.
Maybe
Bret Hart could come out and dominate the women's division.
Bret Hart
if he wanted to be Patrice Hart.
But you're right. Okay. But no, like Goldberg
and Hart probably will when he sees this podcast and gets the idea. Oh, brother, I had thought of that, brother. Call up a doctor.
That punk right there. God, I hate Hulk Hogan. But no, with Goldberg,
you can drop them bombs all day. I'm a woman.
If Vince has anything to say about it, well, I don't know, because like here's the thing. It depends on who it is. Like Goldberg has put over the Undertaker in Saudi in that abomination of a match that they shouldn't have been doing. He put over Lesnar when Lesnar never beat him. He put over Drew McIntyre at Royal Rumble this year, right? If I remember correctly.
Undertaker?
No, Goldberg.
Goldberg? Oh, he lost to somebody. He
lost to Drew McIntyre. So maybe if I was the booker, if I'm Vince McMahon, and knowing that Goldberg has put over all this subset of people, and he said, I want to have a last match, then you give him somebody that he can beat and do classic Goldberg. That's what you do. Don't make him have his last match against Roman Reigns, because you know Roman Reigns is going to win that. And it's like, okay, you're just jobbing him out on his way out, right? You know, if you want him to lose to Roman Reigns, then be like, hey, Goldberg, you know, you're going to job to Roman Reigns, but you're going to have one last match, and we're going to have you do classic Goldberg, squash somebody, and that's your last match. And I think Goldberg would go for that. But if his last match is Roman Reigns is going to win. And I don't know if that's the right way to send Goldberg out.
If you want to book Goldberg and you can get him to agree, the way you book Goldberg at the end of his career is you take him back to the beginning of his career. And what you do, and I think they may have already done this, but the way I would book it would be that he would announce he's going to retire. God, this sounds familiar. He's going to retire, and you have someone, Roman Reigns, come out and say, you're not retiring because you belong to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or have him come out and insult Goldberg would be the proper way to do it. Make him an adversary, and then have that adversary immediately dismiss Goldberg as not being worth his time. Motivate Goldberg to not retire because I've got to get this one last guy. Make it about whoever that person is. Again, we'll use Roman Reigns, but it could have been who's the big guy?
Oh, Lesnar.
No, the guy they just released.
Which
is a giant mistake. Braun Strowman would have been the guy, especially if he's on his way out. Braun Strowman would have been great for this. Right. But whoever it is, make him an asshole. Go, yeah, you go ahead and retire, bitch, because you couldn't handle my Johnson. And have him go, what'd you say? Mm-hmm. No, and have him be in with the commission or whoever the fuck is running WWE storyline-wise right now to distance himself from Goldberg and force Goldberg to fight his way from the outside in, one person at a time, and Goldberg becomes Goldberg of old and starts stalking the locker room and spearing people and calling people out, demanding matches. Have him spear Triple H. Have him spear Stephanie McMahon. Have him spear the old man until he gets his matches, and then have him crush have him crush Rey Mysterio, have him crush Kofi Kingston, have him Kofi Kingston, Jesus Christ, have him crush these guys, have him crush Kofi Kingston from the UN, have him crush all kind of people until he gets to a point where he's got to wrestle the guy he's going to wrestle, and then let them have a classic match, which is another thing because I don't think Goldberg can have a classic match, but let them have it, let them fight in a tag team match, and Goldberg can win and pin the guy, and then next month at WrestleMania, it's Goldberg against, I don't know, whoever it is, Triple H, and he loses, and he loses well, and they hug. And that's how he retires. Mm-hmm. That's the way you do it. That's how you book it. That's how they book Ric Flair on the way out. Mm-hmm. That's the way they book Steve Austin on the way out. That's how you book him. Mm-hmm. You give him one more run. You let him spear people every week on TV. You let him have big matches at 3 or 4 pay-per-views. You have him have some old friends come back and support him in some tag matches and help him clear the ring. And then you let him lose at WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. And that's how you book it. They won't, but that's how you do it. And that's how you make good TV. Because it takes 10 minutes a week from your 2-hour show, and you get all the old Generation X fans to watch your show.
Right.
That's what they should have done with Sting. Sting should have been coming out of the rafters and calling people out and not talking at all. And he should have gone on a rampage every week for a year.
And their first problem was they shouldn't have had him job to Triple H at WrestleMania. It's like that was terrible booking.
Right. Triple H should officially retire and let him do what he does. He needs to quit pulling the hammers out and stay in his suit. He does.
No, I agree. Yeah, that's what he needs to do. Like, personally, probably going to piss off some wrestling people, but I've always felt Triple H was very overrated. I think they did a lot to try to push him to be more than what he actually is. I mean, like I just find Triple H to be very average, in my opinion, as a wrestler. He was never quite.
He's got charisma. He's fun to watch, in my opinion. But we'll agree to disagree. I don't like him much as a person, and I think he's kind of a pussy and he's kind of a sellout, but I don't know enough about the guy to really say that with any confidence. So
I will say this. I gained a different level of I see Triple H in a different light from a personal standpoint when you watch the Shawn Michaels documentary. Have you seen that on AEW? Because if I'm Triple H,
it's on A&W?
A&E. Sorry, I said AEW. So A&E.
Yeah.
You need to watch
I haven't seen that.
That is a fascinating documentary. And if you listen to some of the stuff Triple H put up with from Shawn, dude, I don't see how they friends. Like they were telling a story like Shawn was so coked out doing drugs the way he was that Triple H would put him in bed and then set an alarm every 2 to 3 hours just so to make sure he wasn't on his back choking on his own vomit and stuff. Like that's what type of friend Triple H was to Shawn. And
Triple H obviously is the one guy that had his act together. But again, I got to go back to wrestling with Shadows, and he was, he was part of the bitch pack.
He was. He was.
So that incident makes me a fan of Undertaker for life, and not a fan of Triple H or Shawn Michaels. Although Shawn Michaels has done a lot to reform himself.
Right, and him and Brett made their amends. I don't know if Brett and Triple H did.
I don't know. I mean, I got to presume that Bret Hart isn't the stand-up paladin that he would like everyone to presume he is. Because number one, and we've never talked about this, we need to talk about the Montreal Screwjob, but I'm telling you, we were the ones that were screwed in that. It was a swerve on us. And I didn't believe that.
All right, Scott Hall. Okay, Scott Hall.
I didn't believe that at the time, but I believe it now. And we'll do a whole WWF episode. We'll do a wrestling episode next week, and we'll do AEW. We'll do the Montreal Screwjob, and we'll find a third aspect, because those are both things that we can sink our teeth into. And we'll do a theme episode.
Dude, so I'm just saying. Vince caught a shot to the face pretty damn hard for that to have just been a swerve. I don't know if he was look, Vince will do a lot of things. I don't think you taking a shot from 240-pound Bret the Hitman Hart yoked up just because like ratings, brother. I don't think so. Like,
I don't
no,
know,
he
man.
took that.
I don't know. I mean, your point is valid, but I don't know. Because okay, that's on one side, and then we'll talk about all the things on the other side.
Right. And I get where you're coming from, because I've heard Scott Hall say that, and he makes a very compelling case. But no,
Look at what we'll talk about next week, but look at everything that happened as a result of that one scenario.
Right.
Everything that happened that was positive for Bret was positive for WWF. So let's talk about this last thing, and we'll do it quickly.
Okay.
Because we're going up on 2 hours, and there's not a lot to talk about because half of us don't watch basketball. But you wanted to talk about the NBA playoffs.
NBA playoffs going on right now. So we're going to crown a brand new champion, a champion we haven't had in a long time, for the first time in I think about 10 years.
Have the Suns ever won the championship?
The Suns, I don't. If they won, they may have won back in the 70s. Otherwise, I don't think they have. I will say this: we're going to have a new champion. So this is the first time in about 10 years you haven't had LeBron or Curry in like the finals. So you're going to have something different. Surprisingly enough, the Brooklyn Nets, the super team, they lost the other day to Milwaukee. So Giannis Antetokounmpo looks like he's poised to go. The Atlanta Hawks, of all teams, won a Game 7 against Philadelphia. So there's a lot of fallout from that. They want to run Ben Simmons out of town because he can't shoot and do a lot of things. I want to run him out too because that's ridiculous that his level of game he's got. Right now going on, we got the Los Angeles Clippers. Oh man, they done busted Devin Booker's face open. This is live right now. Oh my God. Yeah, like Patrick Beverly has busted his face open.
Oh my goodness.
Good grief. So this is live. This is live.
Everywhere.
Like
Beverly, I saw Beth on camera. Beth was on camera. I'm going to put it over the internet. So move your camera because
yeah.
Oh. He broke this man's nose.
Yeah, I think his nose.
Point the camera at the TV.
Oh yeah, pointing at the TV.
God damn.
Yeah, his face. You're not going to see it. Like the.
I see a white glare.
Yeah, like this. The
racism.
Yeah, he done busted his. He hit. Oh man, he head butted him in the nose.
That's crazy.
And it's Patrick Beverly, so he may have done that on purpose. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to accuse somebody, but Devin Booker's face is broken open. And the reason why this is significant, you brought up the Phoenix Suns. The Suns are making a pretty good run right now. They're in the Western Conference Finals. They took out my Nuggets in 4 games. I'm very surprised. But Chris Paul is out right now because of COVID protocols. I don't know whether he's got COVID or not, but they haven't announced. It's not like he's on 10-day quarantine. Like Chris Paul is nowhere to be found. And so Devin Booker, their other superstar, is just left the game. What looks like a broken nose. Like his face is busted open. So that's significant. The Clippers are missing Kawhi Leonard, and they got playoff P running a joke right there. But the important thing is you're going to have something interesting. So you could have like the little step brothers of Los Angeles, the Clippers. They could possibly go to the finals, or you could get Phoenix to go on the Western side.
Phoenix.
On the Eastern side, you're either going to get the Atlanta Hawks led by Trae Young, like Reggie Miller of today. He's trying to have the villainy of Reggie Miller, but I don't think he's quite got the charisma to pull that off like Reggie did. And then you've got Giannis Antetokounmpo up in Milwaukee, clearly about to be the biggest star in Wisconsin because they're going to run Aaron Rodgers out of Green Bay. But no,
how long have you been working on that?
I just thought that up just like that. But no, so very interesting stuff with the playoffs. But yeah, the Lakers went out in the first round. I was very surprised Brooklyn went out to Giannis and Milwaukee, because I thought they were going to win it all the way there, assembling the team. I thought my Nuggets had a chance, especially because they made the Western Conference Finals last year. But, Phoenix proved to be too much for them. So I was very surprised by that. And so, but we have big development.
Yeah, I get it.
Here.
So and we'll let you watch that. So, I'm not going to claim to be I'm out of sports almost altogether. But I mean, watching what I've watched, and I've watched a few games, I just don't see how Phoenix and Milwaukee don't go to the finals. And
Yeah, I think it
I
is
think
going to.
Phoenix is going to win.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Phoenix and Milwaukee. I
Hmm?
don't know. You might be right, especially if Chris Paul is there. But I think Milwaukee's going to give. I think Milwaukee's going. They're about to beat Atlanta. That would be a good series, Phoenix and Milwaukee. I think it would go 7 games. I think you do give the edge to Phoenix because they've got better shooters, but I don't think Phoenix has an answer for Giannis. So it could be interesting.
You know, it's the NBA, so individuals make the game. I looked it up just for the
Mhm.
sake of it, and of these 4 teams, Milwaukee won the championship in '71,
Mhm. That's when
and
they
the
had.
Saint
That was when they had Lou Alcindor before he went to the Lakers and he became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
yes, and in 1958, before there were black people in America, the St. Louis Hawks won.
Right, St. Louis Hawks. So Atlanta hasn't even won a championship since they were in St. Louis. It
No,
seems like all the teams that win a championship in St. Louis win one and leave. Like the Hawks did it, the Rams did it.
here's something else to talk about. So we have a new soccer team in St. Louis coming
Right.
with a very unimaginative name, but that's fine. It's soccer.
Who are they? St. Louis what?
They're the St. Louis. Let me look it up because it's like
Because I
it's a
know
team without a name.
they were getting a soccer team. Did they build it over where Union Station was?
They're building it west of Union Station,
That's what I
and they're
thought.
trying to
Okay.
build a corridor along 40, Interstate
Mhm.
64, and that would be a part of it. So you I don't know if you've been here, but there's a new IKEA there in the
Yeah,
last 5 years.
I've seen it.
They're trying to connect, and Central West End is exploding, so they're trying to connect Forest Park to downtown, and they're doing a fair job. They're going to be called the St. Louis City SC.
It's almost 10 o'clock.
That's their
St. Louis
official
City
name.
Soccer Club, and so that's what these soccer teams do. Though they don't usually they're not like the Atlanta Foot Kickers or shit or something like that. It's usually soccer traditional names. They do it overseas as they get FC added to it. You know what? I like the ones like Real Salt Lake and stuff, because that stands for Royal. So you never really get like a mascot. They're going to now. I like FC better than like SC. So St. Louis. So they're going to be called the St. Louis City Soccer Club.
Yeah, SC.
That sounds like a rec league when you call it a soccer club.
Well, it's very European, so that's fine. But even the Europeans have names. I mean, the Arsenal and so
Well, they
I don't
are
know.
Arsenal. It's not like they're like Manchester Arsenal. They're Arsenal. That's who they are.
I understand. Thank you very much for the correction. So, but to go back to my original question, maybe this is a spot for a future show as well. But I don't understand St. Louis sports. I don't understand the challenges. I understand the economy is going bad. The city's in the wrong direction, and we're the next Detroit. I understand that the city's doomed, and we're all going to die. But that doesn't mean we can't have sports, and we do have sports. We have the Cardinals, who do well more often than not and have world championships. The Blues won the Stanley Cup 3 years ago and have a history of being playoff performers prior to the 90s. So they're not a fake NHL team, but we've had bad luck with football, and I don't see that there's any real argument right now to try to a third team maybe in 10 years. Why can't we get an NBA team? Why is the NBA not something that is taking St. Louis seriously? Because the population's here, the place is here, the interest is here, the season, the calendar's open. Half the community is African American. They're not all that interested in hockey, and I got to presume that most of them would be far more interested in NBA. And they have money to spend. Why is there not an NBA team in St. Louis?
That's a good question. I do not have an answer for it. I think part of the issue that you deal with, though, as a whole with St. Louis sports is outside of the Cardinals, where and I usually find this in other cities where that usually, that because there's so many games, they're on TV a lot.
I just want to say one thing.
No, and they're on TV a lot.
Extend my bedtime to 9:15, please.
Go.
Okay.
What ends up happening with St. Louis sports is that St. Louis people are very bandwagon. is what your issue is. Even with the Cardinals, and the Cardinals have been on a good run to where like everybody can be, hey, Cardinals. But the problem with St. Louis sports is people in St. Louis are very bandwagon, and that's why they have a tough time with their teams. Now, I don't like how Kroenke threw things under the bus when he left, but being objective and what I know about St. Louis people when it comes to their sports, that's what your problem is. And so, yeah, you could get an NBA team, and that'll be okay for a little bit. But
Okay,
if they,
I want you to extend my bedtime.
we need to end this show anyway. That's the issue. That's what I find the issue with St. Louis sports is like after you don't win for a while, people lose interest and nobody wants to do anything and they're claiming other cities. And then what happens is later on when people want to win, then everybody's St. Louis sports again. So that's your problem. People are too bandwagon. Stop being bandwagon and pick a team. Stick with it.
Cardinals fans are Cardinals fans, and Blues fans are Blues fans, and your point is valid. People were not sticking with the Rams because the Rams suck. But the problem with the Rams leaving was not just fair weather fans. There was also an issue with a badly run sports authority, a badly run city, and I continue to say that's the case,
right.
and a guy that took advantage of an opportunity to get what he wanted. So there's a lot of bad actors, and the fans reflect that. Because the product reflected that,
Right.
So I'm not ready to throw all the fans. You know, you're really very sensitive to victim blaming, and to say that the fans are the reason that the Rams left is kind of victim blaming. I'm a little bit disappointed in you in that.
What? I didn't say the fans were the problem that the
and
that
don't
Kroenke
don't
was going
say
to move that team anyway. But what I'm saying is St. Louis people don't stick with their teams. They don't do it until like they start winning. Well, then again, it's the show me state. So show me you winning, and I'll show you my dollars.
Because Cardinals fans still go to the Cardinals, and they've not won every year. The Cardinals have not done well. The Cardinals have declined. The Cardinals have declined every season since Schilt took over.
But but tell the truth. And most people in St. Louis don't want to hear this. And I'm just going to tell you the truth. Do the Cardinals sell out their games?
Prior to COVID, no, they don't sell out, but they have a large stadium and they sell 80% on the regular.
Have you been to sell out their games? Yes or no?
No. But what Major League Baseball team sells out their games? They sell out every weekend. That's a fact. They sell out every weekend.
Okay.
Capacity crowd, 70,000 people every weekend. Prior to COVID,
70,000 people in that stadium. Or
I've been in that stadium. You can't find anywhere to sit. That's a fact.
But the thing is,
you take out August weather and you take out Tuesday night, and they do well.
But I guess,
tell me what MLB team, what Major League Baseball team does sell out other than the Yankees?
Don't, because they got a whole lot of games. But even still, though, like I think,
don't seriously. You have not been good tonight. You've not had a good product. What the fuck? How are you going to make an argument, and then when the argument doesn't hold up, you're going to go, well, that's reasonable. What the fuck? Why did you say it then?
But they don't. But people act like, oh my God, best fans in the building, and we got this whole community. They don't sell out every game. The Cubs, people don't want to hear it.
Don't sell it every game.
They sell out that old broke ass stadium every game almost.
All right. Keep talking. Give me 5 minutes. Give me 2 minutes.
I'm about to hop off this call.
No, you're not going anywhere.
You don't think the Cubs sell out Wrigley Field more than the Cardinals sell out Busch Stadium?
Let's look real quick.
Go ahead, take a look.
Okay, all right, and I'm gonna you're gonna call me. You're gonna say something inappropriate. What are we betting? What are we betting?
We're not betting.
What are we betting? What are we
betting?
What are we betting? The loser has to call the winner massa.
That shit ain't happening ever.
That's troublesome.
Problematic.
So problematic. Here's your 2019 MLB attendance. The number one team was the Los Angeles Dodgers. 3,974,000 attendees. Not quite close. In second place, St. Louis, 3,480,000. Then the Yankees. Then the Cubs.
Now, let's talk about stadium capacity.
Fuck off with the stadium capacity.
Dude,
Yankee Stadium, seriously,
Dude, look, the Cub Stadium is much smaller than the Cardinal Stadium. So no, they're not going to ever. Go ahead, look it up. Look up the capacity of both stadiums.
I'm looking. Yankee Stadium is 54,000 people. 250.
Yankees is
well,
54?
they were 54. Wrigley Stadium is 41,000. So you have a point there. Busch Stadium holds 12 people.
12 people, huh?
Think about that. They pulled off, however, what I say, 700 million people in 1 year, and they can only put 12 people in the stadium at a time. Do the math.
What? Okay.
12 people at a time. They had 8 trillion attendees just in the month of September.
8 trillion in just in the month of September. Got you. What the heck?
I'm not good at algebra. Brother and the Man Show, the worst show ever. Season 2, episode 2, way late. Episode 1 was boring. Episode 2 is a train wreck. God knows what happens. Episode 3. Episode 3 will drop sometime in 2024 after Trump is reelected.
It'll be quicker than that. So there. Well, good. It was good. It was good seeing you enter debate.
Did you extend bedtime?
Yes, I did. Like, good. Like, thanks, because that was a conversation that needed to be had right now. Thanks, son.
All right, I'll send him a link. He can be on the next episode.
Gotcha.
You can be optional. And we're out.